Dynasty the king.
2023 is in the books, and so is the fantasy season that went along with it. But because this is Dynasty, it's not the end of the story. It's just the start of another chapter. 2024 is around the corner. And really, just like we started the season in the illustrious company of Mr. Michael Smith, who's back in studio with Dylan and I, we're kind of kicking off the new year, but also preparing for hiatus. This is the last episode before the show takes a break, and we plan on new content coming into the Dynasty year. But guys, a year in review. Dylan, always great to see you. Lifelong friends. Mike, it's been a minute since you've been on the pod. Thanks for joining us, man.
Hey, my pleasure. First time, long time.
It's been a good time. Dylan, you and I were talking a little bit before the show. This was probably the most hectic year, not just for fantasy, but for me in my personal life. It was a year of giving birth to both a brand new business venture, nothing to do with fantasy. And I will have you know, I caught my own child. Okay. I was very involved in the birthing process. All right?
Did you really? Like for real?
No, for real.
Really?
Like, dude, my wife is a superstar. I don't mind telling you guys this.
Yeah.
Her pain tolerance, she was so positive about the whole birthing experience that literally she gaslighted me and everyone. She's like, I'm not in labor. These are these are fake contractions. If I had not left when I did, it would have been a car baby. Like we got to the birthing center. We did like a midwife thing. It was cool setup, medical professionals involved. 30 minutes later, caught the baby. Like she pushed it out 100%, bro. It was nuts.
Did you watch everything? Like you saw everything?
Oh, bro, the whole nine.
Really?
Yeah, she was like, yeah. So I was a home birth. So I kind of grew up in that culture of like, we got this, you know, and then she did a lot of research. So we wanted the backstop of like medical professionals and a hospital nearby, but we wanted to be home birth if health and all that was possible. So we were advised, shout out Baby Moon Inn in Phoenix, Arizona. They're an awesome setup, an awesome situation. So we go to a birthing center where there are midwives around the clock who are there to coach you, have all your medical stuff. And they're as involved as you want them to be. They're as uninvolved as, fantasy football, catching babies.
No, that's awesome because like a friend of mine had kids before me. I got 3 now, 17, 15, 11. I never went below my wife's shoulders because I was told there are certain things you cannot unsee. And that just stuck with me. And I remember after my first child, hopefully my wife don't mind me sharing this. Let's just say it was a mess down there. They had a lot of repairing to do. So thankfully, I didn't see all of that because that's just I get kind of squeamish. So
100%.
Props to you. But I guess I'll say to get us back on track, I'll say it's been babies all around. Babies have been born all around. You gave birth to an actual baby, or your wife gave birth to an actual baby. You guys birthed this podcast. Yeah. And more so, you know, we'll get to this later, Josh. I'll give it back to you. But, you know, this is my first year, my first season playing Dynasty. And I like to say my dog Stokely is my 4th child. My 5th child has been Dynasty. Dynasty is like a baby. It is like a child. It requires round-the-clock care. So I'll leave it at that.
I totally forgot, Mike, that this was your first time playing Dynasty. Like this season it seemed like forever. Like it didn't seem like you were new to it at all. Like I completely forgot about that. It doesn't seem like
it flew by at the same time too. Yeah. Like we've known you for a year. We've been playing Dynasty with you for a year. If you go back to the expansion and that whole, it's like, holy cow, I feel like you just had joined the Yacht Club League, and obviously we do another league, and just like it flew by, man.
No, I mean, but we crammed a lot in a year. It's like, you know, Dylan, when we first logged on, I said, hey, Dylan, it's been forever since I talked to you. It's probably been like a week, but a week of us not talking feels like forever because over the course of the last year, I would venture to say, one or both of you, I've talked to y'all probably, I mean, I say 365 days. If it was less than 320 days, I'd be shocked.
That's about accurate.
I would say minimum 320. I'll probably talk to y'all at least once a day, and I'm counting text as well. And as we may or may not get deep into, Josh, you know, me and Dylan talked so much that it blew up an entire league. Who knew? Who knew? Oh, who knew our relationship would, you know, be such a problem for some people? But I digress.
Lord Almighty. No,
Where'd you want to take it, Mr. Host? Where were you going to go?
No, I was simply going to say, I mean, the big, I was talking about birth, like, other business, real estate business launched with my friend. We've both been in real estate for quite some time. You have to get the culture right from the start. And I think the story with Yacht Club and one of the lessons, because the question really is, what's the biggest lesson you learned from 2023? I've been playing Dynasty coming up on my 5th year now. And I think the biggest lesson I learned this season was not as a player, but was as a commissioner, which is you have to have a consistent culture. Because we had some catalysts break off. We already addressed some of the Yacht Club drama here and there. And there's a lot of great guys in that league, a lot of love. But I think the reality is, looking back as a commissioner, how it started and then where it was going. There was a couple guys only 2 or 3% off as to what the league should look like. But you give enough time, you give enough personalities and enough like unresolved things can just stack upon themselves and people can get very frustrated. So, but that's part of it. That's part of Dynasty. And that's, managing those personalities if you're a commissioner is a huge part of the game. And so I know I learned a lot of lessons, choosing to take those as positives. Dylan, I would love your thoughts on what you learned in 2023 as both a player, league mate, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, to just kind of add on to the Yacht Club personality thing, at the same time, it's kind of like it's a necessary evil that you kind of have to deal with, because personalities kind of make a league, right? Like if you don't have personalities, because I'm in leagues too where there's just no personality, the chat's not very active, people aren't really engaged. Where like in Yacht Club, there was so many personalities, and that's what made it so fun, and we had a blast doing it. Like, I mean, the personalities that we had, and it made it. But at the same time, when they go a little bit too far and you don't have the boundaries in place, that's when it goes overboard. But one of the things that I learned in 2023 was don't go where you're not wanted. And I think for me in leagues, and this is league specific as well, you can kind of tell that there's a vibe where you're not wanted in the league if you're excluded from trades, if people aren't trading with you, if you don't get the inside jokes in the chat, whatever it may be. Don't go where you're not wanted, because it just makes for a piss poor experience whenever you go to build a team, because it's miserable. You get stuck dealing with 2 managers or 3 managers, and that's about it in a 12 team, 14 team, 16 team, whatever league it is. If you go down to only working with 3 to 4 managers, it doesn't make it fun. And so if you're not wanted there, don't be there. And so that's kind of what I learned. And Mike, I see you nodding your head. I'm sure you kind of agree with that.
I mean, I need some space here. So first of all, it's just my instinct, my host instincts. For anybody that may be tuning into this episode and then tuned into the last episode, it's like, what the hell are these guys talking about?
Yeah, very true. Very true.
The league that Josh, Dylan, and the 10 other franchises a year ago expanded to make room for me a year ago, the Yacht Club League, the league that introduced me to these guys, the league that introduced me to Dynasty, the league that was the inspiration for this here podcast, kicked me and Dylan out, and Josh left. That's long story short. Me and Dylan got kicked out the league. We got kicked out the club. Josh decided he didn't want to be a part of it anymore for a lot of reasons. It was a long time coming.
Yeah.
Is that an oversimplification?
No.
Okay.
I want to be fair to all things, how everything bubbled over. I don't think there was a single agenda. There was multiple things going on. The league grew apart. The catalyst was me going, I'm done with all of this. I kicked everyone out and almost deleted it. Let's just be clear.
You did.
I was like, yo, that being said, I gave the people back, the troublemakers, in my opinion, who were like, yo, I gave people who wanted to keep the league going back, but you and Dylan never received an invite back. And that was there was some clear personality issues of like, hey, Dylan already making reference to it. Don't go where you're not wanted. There were some people that were closer than others, and the league had gotten so big, you're going to have people you're closer to. That's okay. Like that should never have been a problem in my mind going into it. But like I said, agendas, everyone has a different opinion on what something should be. And
well, let me, if I could jump in here, because I think chronological is the best way to kind of look at things. Again, just to look back before we look forward, I'll never forget being in that van in Seattle with you, Josh, and being like, this league sounds incredible, and wanting to purchase a team, wanting to expand, but the expansion process was so difficult for a variety of reasons, whether it was, certain people wanted to protect a certain number of players.
I think just to add context there, when you say
Please.
difficult, because you weren't even in the chat yet, all hell was breaking loose because we were trying to do this, and this. So that I'm glad you brought that up because
so it was worse than I even knew.
Josh, you can attest to that. I think
dude,
yes,
no,
it absolutely
Mike,
behind the scenes was a lot worse.
Mike joined halfway through the discussion, and I think he did see some of it. And I had never seen the expansion process was incredibly painful. And I thought once we got through it, okay, all those issues are gone. They're in the closet. It was just a difficult season. But just speaking to things growing differently, Dylan and I are passionate about fantasy. We were already super ambitious fantasy guys. We're always going to be that and bring that to a league. I think for some owners who are kind of in the middle, so to speak, this really was for them I want to play with the guys I've always played with, but play Dynasty, which I totally respect. What was frustrating, I should say, is the manner in which you express that. If that's a problem, handle that, I would say, more maturely. And there were some immature things. I did some immature things as well.
Sure.
But I mean,
here's
the thing. If you're lukewarm, stay lukewarm. We're hot over here. We want to stay hot.
Yeah.
So that's the
exactly.
thing. That's what was kind of making an issue.
And so it was difficult. But then, once we got the expansion process done, I am so grateful for I will take the Pepsi challenge against any of y'all about how much time. If we go to our iPhones, it'd be like time spent on an app. No way. No, I was on sleeper nonstop. It was crack. I was addicted to it. And I was addicted to all aspects of the Yacht Club. It was everything it was cracked up to be in that van in Seattle, Josh. It was the banter, the energy, the competitiveness, the cutthroat nature of it all. A lot of smart dudes. And it was fun. And I enjoyed, reinventing my team half a dozen times minimum. And making the playoffs. Josh said, "Hey, no way you're making the playoffs year one." I was like, "Watch me, hold my beer, whatever." And it's it was a fun process. So then toward the end, it sounds like, and just in the interest of efficiency, we'll try to wrap this portion of the program up, this therapy session up, because it's not
haven't been together on a call yet. So
it's not like we talked about it. It's the first time we've talked about it because I ain't gonna lie, I'm still hurt because that team was loaded that I left behind. Loaded. Puka, Tank Dell. I could go on and on. Loaded. Toward the end, it just seemed like the tension was just kind of brewing for whatever reason, and I'll own my part in it. I got into it with a guy I never met on the chat, and the ugly side of me came out. You know what I'm saying? And it just was it felt like that was it wasn't the straw that broke the camel's back. It was like kicking the camel when he's already down. It was all right, man. It's just, if this don't tell us everything we need to know about the culture of this league has crumbled and eroded, nothing else will. And so 1 minute I'm losing a playoff game. The next minute, it's showing the 2022 season on. Josh said, "All y'all can kiss my ass."
So here's what I was. Dude, I did. I literally clicked delete, and it was like, you can't delete it. There's people in the league. I was like, I kicked them all out. And then when everyone was kicked out, I was like, all right, I need to take a beat. I'm being a bit of a jerk here. But all it was for me, I was at my wife's grandmother's funeral in California, and I had no time to respond to all the drama. And you mentioned it earlier, Dylan. You can speak to this. We've had, and this is before you ever got here, Mike. Part of competitiveness is guys are strongly opinionated. There's no problem with that. The amount of time it took to come to resolutions with just 12 guys that had known each other a long time with just a few different personalities was like pulling teeth. I had already said and promised myself and promised my wife, I'm not doing this again. If there's another league controversy, I'm out. I'm done. And so when it was all happening and when and where it was going down, I was like, I'm done. I'm not going to put in the work to fix this. This is not, we're not playing fantasy anymore. We're playing politics. And commissioners shouldn't do that.
Because I think this is a good general conversation fantasy, also for commissioners out there. For
sure.
Every league deals with that because there's so many leagues. The leagues that I'm in that have any sort of personalities, you can have just two people that have strong personalities. There's always going to be that. So, I mean, for you, Josh, what would be your advice? Because you're drawing that line. What would your advice be to other commissioners?
No, two things. One, another straw that broke the camel's back is I had been really lax on certain rules and like, no, man, like we've known each other a long time, no worries. I hadn't collected everyone's dues yet. That's on me first and foremost. Like that's not on anyone else for like enforcing that. But when I found out people are yelling at each other, dues aren't collected, I was like, okay, we're in big trouble. So number one, I think you have to start out. If you're a commissioner, you have to be a dictator. You have to have a standard and make sure everyone understands what the standard is coming into that league. And that's not a mistake I'm going to make moving forward. I was way too much like, hey, this is all of our thing. You know, we're all going to do this together. Like I wrote the league contract to help with that. I wanted everyone to have equal buy-in. And the reality is that just never happens in life. And that's okay.
Yeah.
And
but
if you're listening to the podcast and taking notes, he said, have a backbone as a commish.
Well, but you know what?
Dylan was always mad when I was like, because Dylan knows me, like I have a temper, but I was always very political and I felt like I need to be because there's a lot of personalities and that's okay. Like I don't regret trying to be gracious, but at the same time, yeah, I think I let things go unchecked too long.
No, you did a great job. We all got edges to us. I learned that. What did we learn in 2024? Yeah. Dylan is the sweetest guy, but like, and we talked about David versus Davis. Like Dylan in the chat, I'm like, damn, dog. Like, I mean, Dylan wanted the smoke in the chat. I mean, it was.
Time I had enough. I was like, listen, all right, you know what? No holds barred. You're right. There was a little bit of.
Oh my gosh. Dylan, yeah. Okay. Devin, there you go. But I say this though, for me, like just to put a bow on this. And I hope there's somebody out there, even if it's one person. It's like in church. Yeah. If we can just touch one person, if one person,
someone in here today needs to hear this. Yeah,
I'm saying no, because I mean, like if you listen to this podcast, you're a degenerate just like us. And there are some people out there who are in leagues that are as hardcore and as emotional and as competitive and as personal as Yacht Club was. I love the phrase, everything ends badly, otherwise it wouldn't end. Yacht Club for the three of us, it was fun. It ended, but we did learn something from it. We learned how to be better commissioners. We learned how to be better league mates, hopefully. We're moving forward. We already have a 12-team league called the Dynasty Cartel that had its first season last year. We're starting up a 16-team league named after this year program called the Dynasty Exchange. It's going to go hard. But I do want to answer your question, though, about what I learned. I learned, first I'll start with dynasty strategy. I learned that you should be acquiring more draft picks than you send out. As a rule of thumb, if you could hold draft picks and just be diligent and disciplined about not trading draft picks if you can help it, but more so acquiring picks, it puts you in such a phenomenal position to win now and later. I think when I first started, I was a little too loose with picks. I didn't realize just how valuable that currency is.
They don't get injured, man. They just
don't. And so as time went on, I got smarter about it. And I feel like by the end of it, which I got one more parting shot. They wanted me out the league because they knew I was gonna run that motherfucker for a while. they let a wolf in the hen house. It was like, oh shit, this dude got C.J. Stroud, Anthony Richardson, Puka Nacua, Tank Dell. Like I was locked and loaded. I mean, Tajay Spears, Dak Prescott. I'm sure I'm missing somebody. Sam Laporta. I was like, it was about to go. It was about to be on. If I may say so myself. But no, all seriousness, like if you can save more picks than you spend, you're in good shape. The second thing I learned was, especially in Dynasty, and I think you guys have spoken to us, I won't spend too much time on that, is how important relationships are in Dynasty. Like you can play redraft or season long, and obviously best ball with total strangers. Dynasty, it really is all about the people and the relationships. It's not fun. And not to say everybody got to like one another. It's like the NFL. Like every owner doesn't like one another. How many people you think like David Tucker right now? No, but you don't have to like them. There just has to be at least some respect.
Yes.
There has to be some respect, and at least needs to be cordial and friendly enough to be able to discuss a deal and move on or get a deal done or not. But it can't be personal. And it got personal. Yeah. It can't be contentious. Yeah. Third thing, and this is way more macro, and that's why I want to kick it back to the two of you guys. As I sit here and just look at y'all, 36, 37 episodes in. So, I started Inflection Point Entertainment in August of 2020. We launched the Inflection Network on August 3rd in partnership with iHeart. On August 3rd of 2023 in partnership with iHeart. You guys were the second show that we launched. It started with 3 people. It started with, Davis, with Yacht Club member Davis Nuemi, who I want to take this opportunity. I don't know if he's listening or not, but I want to take this opportunity to publicly thank him for his contribution and the work that he put in helping to get this podcast started. But he's no longer with us. Life be lifing. And even prior to the Yacht Club disintegrating, at least for the 3 of us, Davis had to prioritize other things in his life. And so along the way, this podcast became a duo instead of a trio. And I just want to say how proud I am of you guys, all 3 of you, but specifically you 2. And for that matter, Chris and Parker, our producers, who have put in so much time and so many hours, as you 2 have, to make this podcast better and better and better. I told you guys early on when it was really hard that you don't know what you have in a podcast until you're like 50 episodes in. We still not even 50 episodes in.
That's crazy.
But you guys, the commitment that the 4 of you, I'm talking about Josh, Dylan, Parker, Chris, have shown to keep this train rolling on time without fail, and just to get better. And you have gotten better. Like, you guys have come such a long way. I always saw potential, but not as productivity, not as production. Like sometimes 3 is company, 3 could be a crowd. It's nothing personal, but like Dylan, we talked about this privately, so I'll say it on mic. Like, you found your voice. Now that it's just you and your friend of the last, how many years have you guys known each other? How many years?
15,
20 years?
15, yeah.
15 years,
Yeah,
15 years.
Yeah.
It's like, the 2 of you have brought out the best in each other. And it's really fun to see this thing grow. And I'm proud of y'all. So I learned a lot about management. I say that to say the third thing is I learned a lot about management. I learned a lot about adjustments. I learned a lot about, letting things or people go if they don't want to stay. Dylan, you talked about, don't go when you're not wanted. Don't keep nobody around and don't want to stay either,
Mm-hmm.
And I think, and that's okay. I mean, that's fine. It's not, it's business. It's life. It's like everything ain't for everybody. Everything's not you can't force everything. You know what I mean? And so for you guys persevering, but not only persevering, but growing and developing, it's just been really, really fun to see. I mean, it's gotten to a point now where, like, on the Inflection Network list of concerns of Michael Smith's, y'all are at the bottom of the list. Like, y'all are the least of my worries. And I really appreciate both of you for all you've done this season for this network, for this show. And I'm excited about what we're going to pick up with in March.
Well,
the doors of the church are open.
that was unexpected and greatly appreciated. A little bit at a loss for words, but we appreciate it. No, I think you nailed it with the relationship part. And something I learned that in relation to fantasy football as well, throughout this entire process, being forced to create and you pushing us to like grow as podcasters. And we don't even want to call ourselves analysts because that's just not the vibe we're going with. We're players first. But I have so much more respect and grace for anyone who is attempting to do anything creative and put themselves out there. Because I'm a very critical person, self-critical first. And getting to do this for the past season, Dylan and I kind of treated it like house money. Like, hey, we were doing this in private when no one was looking for kicks and giggles. And now we have Mike Smith coaching us. Like, that's awesome. It made me like very, like, just like, holy cow, there's way much, like so much more that goes into this than you think. And especially on like making takes, like that was one of the hardest things of like, holy cow, I'm about to say this publicly. Like, I believe in this player or I think this player's bad. And so, Dylan, I want to pass to you if you want to continue to answer, but like, what was the take you're the most proud of this year? Because I know we had some misses.
Oh, that's a great question.
Everyone does. But what take were you like, I was right about this, no one listened to me, or you were just one of the only guys like waving a banner for this? Because we've had some misses, but I know you've had a couple hits too.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to kind of piggyback off a little bit what you were saying about the takes, because that was one of the things I learned as well, was like, man, getting a podcast, getting any kind of platform, social media, whatever it is, you open yourself up to scrutiny. The second you say something, the second I made an audacious claim about this guy not being a top 12 dynasty quarterback.
You said top 10. You said top 10.
Okay, sorry. Top 10.
Yeah. I know exactly
Is he
where you're
even
going
top
with this.
12? Not in my book. He's not top 12. You already know I'm going to take this time to do my victory lap on Mr. Justin Fields. He is
Bold
not
prediction.
a top 12 quarterback. I told you guys at the beginning of the season, you drafted him over Lamar Jackson in one of our startup drafts. Everyone was like, oh, he's top 5 this year. No, absolutely not. And I can't tell you how many DMs, how many text messages from you that I got about, man, Justin Justin Fields. So, I mean, that one, it feels good when you get one right, because that's the thing, is like, you have to have a conviction, you have to have a backbone, and there's some that you're going to roll with that you get wrong. Like, I mean, I'm not ready to admit it yet, but Puka Nacua.
You still ain't ready to admit it? Come on. Okay, he's joking. I'm about to say, dude's about to be the leading receiver, rookie receiver in NFL history. But thank you for that. That was very funny. But Josh, before you give yours that you're most proud of, I do want to follow up, Dylan, on your Justin Fields, because I reacted that way for, if you're watching on YouTube, you might have seen my face and how I reacted when you said Justin Fields. Okay, so Justin Fields, he struggled earlier in the season, caught fire, got hurt, has come back, and if you started him the last few weeks in the fantasy playoffs, he may have delivered you a championship. Like, I'm curious about your timing of said victory lap, because it seems like DJ Moore wants Justin Fields to remain in Chicago. The fans seem to be, backing Justin Fields as of late and saying, hey, trade the pick, and it's the gift that keeps on giving, or take Marvin Harrison but keep Justin Fields. Do you think you are right in perpetuity about Justin Fields, or are you right at this moment and Justin Fields is on the ascent the way Josh has always believed him to be?
Yeah, I take a victory lap when I have the slightest window.
Okay.
The window is closing.
Okay.
And I will acknowledge
Okay.
that. But at this moment in time, I'm right, because now he's not valued as that top 10, not
he's
even
QB 14. No, and you said specifically, because he was QB 6 or 7 at the time. He was fluctuating at the start of the season on Keep Trade Cut. And that's the crazy thing about Dynasty. It's all perceived value. No one gives a crap about production. Trevor Lawrence had a horrible year. He's not falling out of the top 10. It's crazy. But Dylan said it's going to go bad. It's going to go bad. And the start of the season definitely did. And he hasn't broken back at any point throughout the season on Keep Trade Cut to a top 10, which tells you to me he's a Dynasty buy, but that's a separate conversation. But I'll give you your flowers there, Dylan. You were right.
Thank you. And Mike, to your point, you're right. Like, just a little fantasy nugget. I would probably go and buy Justin Fields right now. And I know that sounds like I'm backtracking. But
Josh, please trade him. That would be so fitting.
Bro, it would. Just complete role reversal going into next season. It's like, Dylan, as the Justin Fields owners, I have pounded the table for this player.
Right. But to your point, I'm sorry I cut you off, Dylan, is like the value's there, though. You're not, if a guy's available for whatever the QB 14 might go for, it changes the conversation, right?
Exactly.
Do you guys remember, not to just stay on this too long, Dylan always said it was the coaching. And I remember week 2, there was that pick 6, and they showed what happened. They called the same screenplay 3 times in a row.
Week 2, that was like week 12 they were doing that.
They did that too, the bubble screens. They kept doing it. But specifically, it was a screen pass to Khalil Herbert. And I remember talking to Dylan being like, I hate that. Like, this is horrible. Like, you're right. Like, this is so bad.
And you know what? And one more thing. And Josh promised you get to take your victory lap.
All good.
But the other part that we shouldn't leave out of Dylan's preseason take, because we were like, so Dylan, why are you so down on Justin Fields but high on Anthony Richardson? Aren't they 2 peas in a pod? He said coaching. Day one, he said the system, the coaching, the circumstances. And even though we got a small sample size, with Anthony Richardson, we saw enough to see that Dylan was right on that front. All right, Josh, your turn.
Gosh, man, I don't know.
Oh, I know what it is. I know it's only one answer. It's only one answer.
But here's the thing. I got a couple. I'm like low key. Like,
you can't choose. You can't choose.
I can't choose. I gotta be honest. I can't choose. There's 3 that come to mind.
So can I pick the first one? And if it's not that one, give us a second. Yeah. Give us a second and the third one. To me, it's no, it's not George Pickens, because it's been too inconsistent. Although when he's flashed quite brightly. To me, it's hands down. Jordan Love's the QB 5 in fantasy this year. It's Jordan Love. Jordan Love right now is such a cornerstone quarterback. And you not only did you call it day one, and by day one I mean when Aaron Rodgers was still in on the Packers roster, you never wavered.
Nope.
Jordan Love. It's easily Jordan Love. It's my favorite Josh call of the year is Jordan Love.
And that has to be because you play in superflex and the quarterback is the position. There was a couple. I was really proud of the DJ Moore one. That was like the my guy. George Pickens, obviously, and then there's just a couple others. I was like, ooh, I want to pick those. But there was also some misses. But Jordan Love, the reason it was so sweet was the risk reward, because the purchase price ended up being an early 2024 first. When I was in Yacht Club. And then I had to spend a pretty early startup draft pick for him. And at the time, it was a complete unknown. And it was one of those takes, and it was, where you put your money where your mouth is, and it could really go either way because he hadn't played consistently as a starter ever. And so when it hits, that's when it feels special. It's not like, like if you loved Brandon Ayuk 2 seasons ago and then he took the leap, it's like, okay, great. Yeah, he'd been playing and he progressed on the field. Jordan Love, not coming completely out of nowhere by any means, but never having gotten a chance to start and just kind of trusting the process and trusting that the Packers and the NFL media, I think the biggest part of the take that I love was like the NFL media is going to hype up his value. Like everywhere you look, if he throws a single touchdown, you'll see Brett Favre photos and Aaron Rodgers photos. And that has happened. I'm like, yes. So yeah, Jordan Love.
He got better and better. He got better and better as the year went on.
His weapons too. I mean, like you can't deny with that young core, it's just it's wheels up for him.
Well, one of the misses though, Dylan, kind of going to one of your guys though, I thought Christian Watson would be, if you told me Christian Watson would have as disappointing as a season as he has had, I would have thought my take on Jordan Love would be completely incorrect. But the fact that Jaden Reed has stepped up, who you believed in from the start, it's one of those things that makes me trust it even more. It's like he's using any weapon he can find right now to be fantasy relevant.
Bo Melton.
Is like we talk about this with CJ Stroud. We talked about CJ Stroud, him being one to carry a team and elevate the receivers around him. Jordan Love is kind of turning into that. Like he really is with these young, unproven guys. It's Jordan Love that's getting Malik Heath the ball, like you said, getting Bo Melton the ball. Jaden Reed's a certified stud, but we don't know what Bo Melton and Malik Heath are.
And this is without Luke Musgrave for a chunk of the season. I mean, Tucker Kraft has been the guy. Yeah, Christian Watson and Aaron Jones has been out a lot. Like, I mean, it's definitely wheels up. I mean, and he gives you rushing upside. Like, he's got a handful of rushing touchdowns this year.
I think he's got 2 or 3. Yeah.
So it might be 5, bro. I think I looked at it the other day. I was because out of jealousy, I looked at it. I could be wrong, but I was like, damn it. I was like, damn you, Josh. You have Jordan Love, and you were right about Jordan Love. Let me go look at this because I'm actually like trying to see if Raptor, Jordan Love. Am I right? 4. He's got 4. He's got 4.
Okay.
Yeah,
split the difference.
Split the difference. Yeah. So 30 touchdowns, 11 picks, almost 4,000 yards, QB5 on the season, 4 rushing touchdowns to go with it. I mean,
QB5 is crazy. That's
QB5.
Jeez.
QB5.
And you know what's crazy? Is he maybe now a sell? Because that's how Dynasty works. like, do you go, okay, hey, is he at his peak value?
No, I don't think so. I really don't think so, though. If he gets a contract, because that's the biggest question, right? Is you're waiting on that contract to come through. If he gets that, why would you sell? Because then you have a quarterback. Like, especially what we saw this year with quarterbacks, I'm not selling a quarterback that has a contract.
No, it's true.
So you know what's funny about that, and Josh, I think you have another question. You say you had 3 questions, right? So you have another question.
No, I do, but I want to get your take though, Mike. I mean, I know that you weren't necessarily on here week to week giving takes. You came on to correct a few ones that you disagreed with, which was always a blast. But,
oh God, I mean, honestly, I can't even. I couldn't. I mean, dude, they all run together for me. Remember, I do this for a living, so I mean, I just be. I don't know what the hell I'm saying. I don't know, and I'm old too. I mean, let's see. I mean, I guess for me, okay. Here's one, and it actually dovetails into something I want to say. I will say I told you so on this one. I mean, and in the off season, I had different debates with all of you, Dylan, Josh, Davis. And I was like, guys, I'm not telling you what I think. I'm telling you what I know. Now, did I know he'd be in the MVP conversation? No. But like once upon a time, Brock Purdy, it was like, is he going to be the starter?
Yeah.
It's going to be Trey Lance. They signed Sam Darnold. I'm like, guys, it's Brock Purdy. Trust me. I would not steer you wrong. Now, having said that, this takes me to where I want to go. In the Dynasty Cartel startup, I drafted Brock Purdy.
Mhm.
This is Dynasty Giveth and Dynasty Take it away. I drafted him in the late rounds of the startup draft, the 12-team startup draft. But I flipped him to you, Josh, in that league, and you later traded him again. But I flipped him to you for Sam Howell and AJ Dillon. At the time, and somebody else said to me, "Oh, you got a free AJ Dillon." No, I didn't. Because now Sam Howell,
who said that? Yeah.
Okay. Sam Howell is going to be somebody's backup indefinitely. Like he has no future as a starter the way it looked like he did at various points this season.
That breaks my heart.
You know, right? That was the first person I traded for with you in Yacht Club. Dylan, that was our first trade with Sam Howell. Brock Purdy, and then so that leads me to like, I tried this in Cartel. And this is what I don't know whether I've learned it or not. I'm still trying to figure this out. Because at one point it looked like it might work for me. I made the playoffs in Cartel, but I made it with a streaming quarterback approach. Because in a 4-point touchdown pass league, even in superflex, quarterback was the new running back, at least this year. So to your point, Dylan, a second ago about like, but to your point a second ago, Dylan, about like, if you got a quarterback with a contract, why would you trade him? In a 4-point touchdown pass league, I'm trying to figure out whether you need stud quarterbacks or whether you just wait for it. In short, like there are going to be so many guys that are going to emerge. Guys are going to get hurt. Brock Purdy, even though he came out of nowhere last year, what was his value in terms of ADP this year? Because you didn't know you were getting MVP wherever you picked him this year. Oh, you know what I'm saying? It's like, do you absolutely? I'm rambling here. I'll try to focus this. Do you have to have an elite quarterback in Superflex, especially in a 4-point touchdown pass league? I'm not sure I've figured out the answer yet. When Joe Flacco was winning people games down the stretch this year, you know, I don't know. I think
if I could jump in just real quick, because I kind of have a response to it, because we had this conversation a while back, and you convinced me. I was like, or not fully convinced me, but you got the wheels turned in my head of like, you know what? Like maybe it is the new running back. But I think where I've landed is I think you need to have at least one solid quarterback, at least one, because you don't want to roll in with Joe Flacco and Jake Browning. That's just that's not an ideal situation, right? And you don't want to be playing the guessing game of let's say you have 3 quarterbacks on your team: Jake Browning, Joe Flacco, and Gardner Minshew, right? Or even like a
I traded Josh Dobbs. I traded you for Josh Dobbs. How'd that work out for me?
Exactly. So I think if you want to play the roulette with like with a backup with a lesser QB of like a Josh Dobbs, one of those guys, if you want to kind of play the roulette in your super flex, absolutely. For me, I think I would feel better doing that if I have a quote unquote stud. But as I'm speaking, I'm like, well, what if you had Trevor Lawrence this year as your quarterback? Right.
You had Patrick Mahomes in that league,
and I had Patrick Mahomes. Like
maybe this year was an outlier. I mean, but still, it's like if you had Deshaun Watson, like quarterback for me, Josh. Quarterback for me goes like this. There are guys that. So unless you're talking about Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson.
Josh Allen,
a presumably healthy Anthony Richardson, somebody of that ilk. I don't know that the rest of them matter. For example, in Dynasty Cartel, I traded both Trevor Lawrence and Tua Tagovailoa this year, and I feel great about it. And here's why: just as Tua will have the occasional 30-point week, far more frequently than people maybe realize, he's good for 12. He's good for 11. Trevor Lawrence, same thing. Trevor Lawrence may never be a good fantasy quarterback. He's a prototypical reality quarterback. He may never be a good fantasy quarterback. And then here comes a Will Levis. I guess what I'm saying is, if you are active enough in terms of transactions and you can forecast well enough, Dylan, you may have hit the sweet spot. It might be like, get you a guy that like almost like hero running back instead of zero running back. Get you a guy that you're comfortable starting every week, and you'll live with the ebbs and flows, and then play roulette with that second spot. Because whereas now in a 6-point touchdown pass league, maybe it's different.
Story.
Yeah, you
massively different story.
Yeah, but it's just like when I first got into Dynasty with you guys, quarterbacks, it was like do whatever you got to do to get a quarterback. But the guy who won Yacht Club, not that I'm paying attention, but the guy who won Yacht Club had Baker Mayfield as his QB. He had Baker Mayfield and Brock Purdy. And so it's like,
We can give him his flowers in the send off. Good for him.
but it's just, but I guess my point is, it's like there's such a revolving door at that position. And then here come another class of rookie quarterbacks, Josh.
No, I tend to disagree. I think the problem is a little bit of recency bias based on your sample size, right? This year was historic with the amount of quarterbacks that started.
What was it, 60? It might eclipse 60, yeah.
No, totally.
Wasn't it historic last year, though? Like, we're seeing a trend. Like, last year, I'm pretty sure it was also historic with the amount of backups.
Right. We also play 17 games. We have 18 weeks of the regular season. So I don't think you're wrong about the hero quarterback. And I think this is an entirely different conversation, like you mentioned. Playing in two leagues, obviously Yacht Club was the focus. It was the league of record. 6-point touchdown, having played in it for 4 years. If you had two great QBs playing to the level you expected them to, because Mahomes had an off year. I would argue Jalen Hurts didn't have an off year fantasy wise, but his future isn't as bright. The offense doesn't look good.
I had Stroud and Dak Prescott when they were cooking, and that carried me to the playoffs. Yeah,
exactly. So in 4-point, I think you have to at least see it hero. I think it's a good observation of like, okay, rushing guys are much, much more valuable, but the reality is it's not sustainable to win as many trades as you do, Mike. It's not good advice for most people. Like, that much is super clear. You are the transaction king. And then the other argument I would make, I mean, look at Sam Howell. Like he looked like an absolute, not just a good streamer.
He's worthless to me now, unless you want him. Right. Unless you want him, Dylan. I'll trade you. I'll trade you Sam Howell, Dylan, if you want.
You know what? No, but now he's worthless. But he was a top 5 quarterback a lot of the season and finished as QB 11. So
no, I know, but what I'm saying is, imagine the fool's gold of investing future long-term assets to get a guy like that, a second-tier, third-tier guy, because you can make it work at one position. I'll admit, like if you run with Jimmy Garoppolo, Aiden O'Connell, Zach Wills, like I did that. I was like, okay, there's levels that you can do that with. And heck, we don't talk about this enough in Superflex. Don't start a QB. Go get higher. You know what I mean? Especially in the startup draft. And this kind of leads me to my third question. With where the show is going and specifically where the three of us want to go, because ultimately the show is about a super competitive fantasy league. What do you guys want the new league of record to look like, the Dynasty Exchange to look like? Because we've talked about 16-team Superflex league. I was just talking to Dylan before the show. I have been in my bag with research. A couple facts. I was really concerned if we did Superflex with 16-team, it was going to be awful. But if we did 16 teams, start 9, it is the exact same player pool size of starters.
Because last time we talked, we said 8.
I think 8's good based on bench size. But here's what I'm saying. This is just a fact for you. It kind of blows your mind. 16, start 9, same exact player pool that is starting as 12, start 12, which is exactly what we had when we started the Yacht Club. So all I'm saying is that there's this concern I had that, okay, not only in a 16 team is quarterback going to be valuable, it's going to be rare. Like the playoff teams are, in my head, the teams that are going to have 2 healthy QBs, because people are going to lose them throughout the season. But the more I think about it, I am excited to learn about whether or not you can build a team with just a hero quarterback, because there's going to be several teams I'm already betting, and I'm excited to see it happen and how they do it. Win with mostly one quarterback and truly treating the super flex as just an additional flex spot.
So here's the foundation of the league for those that are curious. 16 teams. We're going 4 divisions. 7 teams make the playoffs, 1 bye, 4 division winners, 3 wild cards. It's going to be just like an NFL conference, just like an AFC or an NFC. So it sounds like we're going to go 8. So we're going to start quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 receivers, 1 tight end, 1 flex, 1 super flex, right? We're going back and forth on bench size, no taxi squad, 2 IRs. All I want for this league, I want it to be hard. So I want it to be difficult. So thank you for the compliment earlier about, you couldn't tell it was my first year playing Dynasty. Well, I played fantasy for a long time. Obviously, everybody knows what I do for a living, or have done for a living for a long time. So I kind of know football a little bit. But more than anything, my Dynasty training came from years and years and years and years of franchise mode in Madden. I've always been fascinated by the team building process. It's why I'm relentless when it comes to transactions. So when I played Madden, I never franchised or did franchise mode with a ready-made team. I always wanted the team that was the farthest away from winning, had the worst cap situation, the oldest roster, the fewest draft picks. Because what's the fun in taking the Cowboys and franchising the Cowboys? Like, all right, I mean, they got all this talent. What's the point?
Other than being a Cowboys fan and knowing that may be the only time you see a championship. But yes, I get your point.
Exactly.
Touche.
Correctly using it.
Yes. All right. Managing it properly, right? Winning a playoff game or NFC title game. Sorry.
All right.
Yeah, you're right. No, but I mean, I want this 16-team league to challenge us. I wanna, because I played in a 20-team league, which was a lot. That's probably too much. The best league I ever played in, and the best 2 championships I ever won, was a 16-team War Room League at ESPN. That was the one that had Schefter and Mort, and Matthew Berry, and me, and Phil Yates, and Tim Hasselbeck, so on and so forth. And it was how thin it was, because it challenged you to look beyond the obvious. So people, it's funny, on fantasy football pregame on Sunday mornings, they laugh at me because I'm always coming up with Amari DeMarcado 2 weeks before anybody else. It's because I'm looking for that dude that has 6 carries. You know what I mean? That like, oh, who the hell's that? You know what I mean? I'm always going deeper because I'm used to playing in those deep leagues where you have to challenge yourself to know the rosters on that deeper level. And so I'm looking for a league that challenges me and that challenges all of us to really scout. And Dylan, I know that's your ministry, is scouting. You know what I mean? So like now you gotta draft against 15 other teams. Whereas a lot of
115.
And like in Yacht Club, Dylan, a lot of people around fantasy and dynasty. Your boy Puka Nacua was a waiver wire pickup at some point in the offseason. Mm-hmm. He was the 408 for me in Yacht Club because it's a 14-team league. And so I'm looking forward to drafting in the 4th round of a 16-team league. Like, that gives me tingles to just find that diamond in the rough. You know what I mean?
Totally. And that's one of the things I'm most excited for too, is the challenge of it. But also, I think for me, when I saw this question, the first thing I thought of was, I'm ready to put these fantasy philosophies to the test. We just talked about hero RB or this QB philosophy, because any analyst that you tap into, anytime you're on Twitter, you see all these. We figured it out. Go 0 RB. We figured it out. Just load up on wide receivers. There's so many different strategies that people have figured out fantasy football for a 12-team and even sometimes 14. But not very many strategies have been nailed down for a 16-team superflex league like we're doing. And so I'm really excited to get in there and really put to test, like, okay, what is the best strategy for this? And obviously that also varies with your league mates, right? And that's another thing I'm excited for, is to see, okay, let's get in with some other people that enjoy, like the 3 of us that are super, super degenerate, know when to go pick up Puka Nacua off the waiver wire when he's available, or not even pick him off the waiver wire, draft him in the 4th round as needed. So I'm excited for that, and I just want to nail down the strategy, and I want to see, okay, in this 16-team superflex, we were talking about it earlier, Josh, we don't know what to expect. Is it going to be the first 2 rounds just full of quarterbacks?
I think so.
All 32 quarterbacks going to go in the first 2 rounds, or someone going to deviate from that? And so I'm super excited.
I might. I
saw Mike. I saw your face. I was like, he's going to be the one. He's going to be the one.
All right, because like going back to the startup in Cartel, so I took Trevor Lawrence, and again, here's another lesson. Can I go back to the lessons? Here's what I'm gonna try to do. This is
on the podcast.
That's true. It's like it's a lesson. It's also a New Year's resolution. As best I can, I'm gonna try not to be as active in the off season as I was last year. I'm gonna try, and I said try. I didn't promise anything. But the reason is this: it's like, think about all the decisions that we're making based off just off-season hype, that once we get into the season, it's like, why did I do that? Because we're bored, or not just bored, we're addicted to this thing. And it's like, so going back to startup, I drafted Trevor Lawrence with the 107 because in the offseason, he was going to be an MVP this year. They got Calvin Ridley. It's like, cancel Christmas. I traded my 24 first for the 111 so that I could draft the wide receiver 1. We didn't know that would be CeeDee Lamb. And looking back, I'm like, and this is me still kind of like pushing this whole quarterback hero, maybe even zero quarterback approach to superflex. I think I want to build my team around, depending on where I'm at in the draft. I think I want to build around Jamar Chase. I want to build around CeeDee Lamb. I want to build around Puka Nacua. I want to build around guys that, because it's like, and this is where Dynasty gets really tricky, Josh. I'll pass it to you with this. It's like, is the journey or the destination more fun? Because, like, say Cartel, for example. Now that you guys made the playoffs, I lost in the second round after I beat Davis. I lost in the second round, and it's like,
oh wait, I made playoffs in that league, by the way.
Yeah, Dylan.
Oh, I'm sorry, you did it. Oh, my bad. You got bounced.
My window closed, and I traded back and
sorry. I'm sorry. It's so disrespectful. You did make the playoffs. I'm just kidding. Yeah. Matter of fact, you were a higher seed than me. You were a 3 seed. Yeah. No. But we just crowned a champion on Sunday, and I'm gonna just use his name. Did Jeremy Lundblad even get a chance to celebrate before we were talking about the lottery? Like, we care in Dynasty, we care so much about the offseason and the value and building a portfolio. And then at a moment's notice, it becomes win now and it becomes redraft and season long just for a split second to win. Because Matthew Berry came on the show. That was a highlight for us this year. He talked about flags flying forever. Yeah, but man, I want the draft picks. I like the process. I like the startup draft. I like the process of constructing these rosters. So I think I'm going to build my team, just to kind of wrap this up and combine everything I'm saying, Josh. Startup, I'm leaning toward building my team around guys who are more likely to go for 25 or 30 and win me a week because this 16-team league is a 4-point touchdown pass league, is it not?
Yep.
I think I want to go receivers early and maybe wait on quarterback, believe it or not.
I mean, you got to let the draft fall to you, so we'll see how that plays out. I think the big thing for me is understanding the culture we want to create from the start. And part of that is active owners. And I don't think that you can guarantee that you don't want to ever force people to make trades, but I want to create an environment, and we've talked at length about this, where you're forced to have to work with other owners at some level to get all that you need. And so having a 16-team league is great, but limiting the bench sizes where transactions are going to be the way you push yourself over the top if a championship window does open up. Because I think it wasn't a mistake. Part of the tension that was always there in Yacht Club was there was guys that were very active and wanted to trade more. And then there were guys that knew what they were doing, and you shouldn't punish them for being smart. But in the first 2 years of this thing would tank. And when there wasn't the same tanking rules, when there wasn't the same guardrails against certain things, they built up a ton of wealth and were like, the worst thing I can do is mess with a good thing. And so they just kind of sat back on their haunches and were good for years to come. And that's part of the fun of Dynasty. I think for me, the goal has always been, and I've never even achieved it, step one of this, which was winning a single championship, because I haven't played in 15 Dynasty leagues. I've played in 2, and I just started one last year. But with this league, I want to win 3 championships in a row. I think if you do that, by the way, you will reset the league if we do that. If any owner in the 16-team league wins 3 in a row, we immediately redraft. Like, we start from scratch, because that to me is a dynasty, team of the 90s.
But why? Why do we have to trigger that? Like, what if you win 3 in a row? Because I'm gonna invoke Yacht Club again. Yacht Club, the 2 teams that looked like they were poised to compete for 3 in a row, neither of them made the final.
Yeah.
Neither of them made these juggernaut teams. Neither made the final. In Dynasty Cartel, the league we started last year, the number 2 seed won it, and he had a really good team. I called him I will say, shout out to Lundblad, but I literally said from day one, that is the team I'm most worried about. He nailed the startup draft and the rookie draft, and he's just and he's set up for the long term, and he still has some capital. Yeah, but what if you win? Right, exactly. But what if you win and it's not because your team is just so head and shoulders above everybody? What if you win because your team may look different year to year and you still find a way to win? And I think personally, if somebody wins 3 in a row, that just makes me want to beat them more. I don't want to reset. I want to take you down.
Yeah.
I think it's
that's
easy
a compelling
to say
argument. Actually.
No, it is. And I think it's one the league can have. I'm not saying it's like a hard,
And
we
it's more
have
so
to
a
do
vote,
it. But
right? Like it should be a
that
vote.
one has to be.
At that point,
No,
it's
no
like, okay,
question.
do we
No
reset the
question.
league? Because you can't just say
Yeah.
someone that's been
But
rebuilding, and
I
then
don't
say,
think
okay,
you can.
sorry.
No, exactly. I don't think you can make when you start a league. I'm gonna be confident about this. You can't say, "Hey, any year we can vote to reset it." No, only if this thing happens is this option on the table.
Mm-hmm.
And just being clear about that.
It's like an opt out to CBA.
Correct. And
Yeah.
I think the reason why, one, if you're that owner, that's an incredible achievement. But like to your argument, using your argument against you, Mike, the two juggernaut teams didn't even win it this year. They didn't even make the final. So if you win 3 in a row, that's an incredible accomplishment that you have built a dynasty team. Because what do we say in sports all the time? This dynasty, that dynasty, they always have one thing in common. It's 3 championships. I don't think we talk about the Detroit Pistons of the 90s having a dynasty team. They were a championship team, but I wouldn't call that a dynasty.
Yeah.
You got the Cowboys winning 3. You got
I just think
2 dynasties,
I just think 3 championships in a row for one team is not necessarily reflective of an unhealthy league. You can still have a healthy.
I hear that. No, I hear that. I think it's the fun of if you've been a middling team, and I think the league will get there. Where, oh hey, wouldn't it be cool now that I've known you guys all for X number of years if we did reset the table and we have an excuse to do it to start back at square one?
And startup drafts are fun.
That's actually the point. Is like because the expansion was fun.
Yeah, that context makes way more sense because I think to me, this is my general philosophy: is it takes skill to draft a good team, to manage it during the regular season, and have a good matchup, right? Or sorry, and win your matchups to get into playoffs. Totally. It is borderline just luck to actually make it to the championship game. It's matchups, it's injuries, it's because at that point your league is locked down, right? You can't make any retroactive unless it's like
it's already a game of luck in so many respects. I think we need to talk about that. But if you make playoffs, there's a huge amount of skill involved. Dylan, does this come from a personal place, from a redraft league that you totally should have won the championship in?
I don't want to go there. My team in that league was
best
absolutely
team
loaded.
I've ever seen lose a championship.
Unquestionably should have won it, and I lost. So that's what I'm saying. It is luck. It's all about matchups.
Yeah, no, I've won a couple of championships with teams that. I mean, and honestly, it's very similar to actual football. That's another thing I love about fantasy is it really is reflective of reality because the best team does not always win the Super Bowl. The healthiest team, ball bounce your way, team gets on a roll. It's like that in fantasy. Like, you could have a 140-point week, which I did in the semifinal, and the next week I get 99 because James Cook goes from Jim Brown to Dalvin Cook, in a matter of a week. I'm like, damn, dog. Like, it's so unpredictable. And for me, the thing I've loved about, and the reason I'll never play redraft again, is because Dynasty, there's
never
just
again?
no, I don't think so.
Retired.
No, because it's just because it's not. Once you play Dynasty, to me, it's just hard to go back to.
I agree that it's the steak, man. It's the main part of the entree. But
it's the ownership of it. It's the ownership.
No,
it's the year-round nature of it. It's the long view. It's the long game. It's like, no, this is my team. Like my team in Dynasty Cartel went 10-4. I made some moves toward the end of the year with some trades with Dylan that kind of positioned me more for the long term than the short term. And that team, like, I want to blow it up now, but it's like I'm stuck with it though. It's like I like the idea of having to dig my way out of it. You know what I mean? So yeah, I prefer Dynasty. I'm all in on Dynasty.
Right.
That's it.
No,
that's why we're Dynasty Exchange, Josh, not Redraft Exchange.
I get it. I'm simply saying that.
Thank you, Dylan.
Sports was a good mic drop moment.
That was a great mic drop.
I wasn't knocking it. Dynasty to me is the best way to enjoy fantasy, and we're looking forward, obviously, to building this league and really using it as a case study. And what I think is cool is that the show is going to get to go along for the ride. Heck, the show will be older than the league itself, and so getting to kind of chart the entire journey with you guys is going to be a blast because it's not, we've said it multiple times and I'll keep coming back to it. I think the best advice we can give is players firsts. And yeah, I'm a nerd. I love analytics. I love some of the advanced stuff, but like the journey to win a championship, is it a conversation about hanging banners or is it a conversation about like forever having a contender team and being number one on a trade calculator? I think those are the types of debates we're going to get into this offseason. Obviously, Dylan, I know you're just salivating at the opportunity to just talk rookies nonstop. And I'm sure that's going to be happening from late February into March, but the show is going to be taking a break. We don't know how long that break's going to be, but we have a general idea of when we're going to be back.
I think we could talk it out here briefly as I know you're closing the show. I think the start of the league year. Honestly, I don't know the exact date. Maybe March 4th or something like that. Don't quote me on that. But
NFL
whenever
calendar league year, not the NFL games.
Yes, the start of the NFL calendar league year, the start of free agency. I think we should resume the podcast when player movement picks up.
Yep.
And that's what I would target for us. Yeah, league year.
What'll be fun too is with this 16 team is talking through the draft process, because we have kind of a unique way to balance the draft. We did it with Cartel. It worked out great. I'm hopeful that we're going to be on a show slow drafting our startup team together and getting people like an opportunity to see like what we're thinking as we make some of these picks. But I think
that's a great idea. I think that's a great idea.
I'm
think
worried about you stealing some of my okay, I know Walsh likes this guy. Let me get on the phone and snake this player. It's gonna be tough.
Like we don't already know each other well enough already.
Exactly.
We don't got to get
exactly.
That's very
exactly.
True. Well, this has been season 1 of the Dynasty Exchange. We look forward to coming back in early March. Dylan, any final parting thoughts as we leave these wonderful listeners through the month of February?
Just do your research. Do your research on the rookies. Get ahead now. Now is the time. Watch the bowl games. Watch film. Watch the Senior Bowl. Get plugged in Dynasty Leagues. You want to know. You're going to catch those Puka Nakuas like we talked about a couple episodes ago. Puka Nakua, Tank Dell, those guys were bona fide studs at the Senior Bowl. Look into that stuff so that you know who to go and get in your rookie drafts.
For me, congratulations to you guys on a successful season 1. I'm looking forward to you making your year 2 jump. All the analysts are going to be talking about, the off-season development. You guys aren't rookies anymore. You guys are no longer rookies. Congratulations. Y'all are no longer rookie podcasters.
It's true.
Yeah.
Very, very true. Yes. Appreciate it, Mike. And as always, super thankful to the Inflection Network. Proud to call it home. This has been it for season 1 of the Dynasty Exchange. We will catch up with you guys in March.